would be first because it's more, the sales discounts, it was more than sales returns and allowances. Just like this note said, we have to list them from largest to smallest. So we have our largest, which was our sales discounts, over our sales returns and allowances. And I'll show you how to get the sales discounts and sales returns and allowances. So we're going to go up here, and on May 9th, you can just kind of scroll through this and look, but on May 9th, it shows we had a sales discount that we gave to a customer for $132. So we gave this discount to our customer, so we cannot include that in our net sales account. So we have to, calculation. So we have to put that and subtract it from our sales. So we have 132 as our sales discount, and our sales returns and allowances was 124, which we had on May 29th when the customer returned their merchandise of $124 and we credited them cash. So we would put the sales returns and allowances of 124 into our income statement. And now what we need to do is this was our sales, we need to add the 132 sales discount plus the 124 sales returns and allowances. So that total is 132 plus 124, and that equals 256. So now, in order to calculate our net sales, we need to do sales minus our sales discount, or discounts, plus our sales returns and allowances. So to calculate our net sales, we would have to take our sales, which is $11,080, so $11,080 minus our combined total of sales discounts and sales returns and allowances. So that combined total is 256. So we do 256, and that equals $11,080 minus 256, and that equals $10,824. So that is our net sales. And the net sales is actually given to us. So, the portion of the income statement was given to us, but we had to calculate the net sales. So we put our net sales in right here. And next, for the income statement, as you can see here, we have to calculate our cost of goods sold. So our cost of goods sold will be calculated by adding up everything that was put into the transactions, or the T accounts. So let's minimize this so we can add up these. So cost of goods sold, our first one was on May 2nd. Our cost of goods sold on this one was $3,300. So we do $3,300 plus $4,020, which was on May 24th. And just make sure that there's no more. Let's see here. And we have this one on May 29th. We had $90. But that one was credited. So what you have to be careful with for this problem is making sure which side is debited and which side is credited. So these, let's do a different one here. We'll do debit, and that is cost of goods sold. And our debit amount was $3,300 plus another debit amount of cost of goods sold, $4,020. And we'll skip this one for now just because that's a credit and that's not a debit. And then we'll take this debit amount plus $830. So our total debit of cost of goods sold would equal $3,300 plus $4,020. That equals $7,320, and we would add $830 to that. So we would get $8,150 of debit for cost of goods sold. Now we have to do the credit cost of goods sold. And our only credit one we had was a $90 credit on May 29th. So we had to take out the cost of goods sold of that $90. So we would do $90, and that would be negative. So we would do minus 90, and that would equal $8,060. So our total cost of goods sold equals debit minus our credits, which equals $8,150 minus our credits of $90, and that would equal our total cost of goods sold, which was $8,060. So now we go down here and we input our cost of goods sold as $8,060 right here. And now the final input for our income statement is the gross profit. Now to calculate the gross profit, we would need to subtract our net sales, which is $10,824, minus our cost of goods sold, and that would equal our gross profit. So now let's do gross profit equals $10,824 minus our cost of goods sold, which was $8,060, and that would equal our total gross profit. So we can calculate that on the calculator over here. So if we do $10,824 minus our cost of goods sold of $8,060 equals our gross profit of $2,764. So that is our gross profit, and that is the completed income statement. Now our final portion of this problem is to calculate a couple rates and ratios. So our first, we need to calculate the profit margin ratio and the gross profit rate. And also pay attention to this. Assume operating expenses were $1,400. Also, we need to round our answer to 2 decimal places. So we need to know what is the profit margin ratio, which that is found in your book, and that equals the net income over net sales. So from our calculations, we can see that our net sales is $10,824, but we don't know what our net income is. And that's where you can look on the full income statement and see that in order to calculate our net income over here, you have to subtract the gross profit from the total operating expenses. So our operating expenses are given to us right here. It says assume operating expenses were $1,400. So we have our gross profit, which is right here. So what we would need to do is do net income equals gross profit minus operating expenses, which equals our gross profit equals $2,764, which we calculated just before this problem, minus our operating expenses, which were giving to us in the problem of $1,400, and that equals, so I already have 2,764 minus 1,400, and that equals $1,364, and that is our net income. So we still have to calculate our profit margin ratio, which is right here, but now we have all the information we need. We have our net income and we have our net sales over here. So now it's just a matter of putting it into the calculator. We have to do net income, which was $1,364, divided by our net sales, which was $10,824. So this equals, so $1,364 divided by $10,824, which equals our profit margin ratio. Now, it says in this problem to round our answer to 2 decimal places. So this would be, if we're rounding, it would be 0.1, and since the 6 makes the 2 round up to a 3, it would be 0.13. And that's how we calculate our profit margin ratio, which is right here. So we just calculated that one. Now we need to do gross profit rate. And in the book it states that the gross profit rate is equal to gross profit divided by the net sales. For this problem it's a little easier because we have both our net sales, which we calculated here, and our gross profit, which was here. So it's just a matter of putting it into the calculator. So we do gross profit, which was $2,764, divided by our net sales, which was $10,824, and that equals, if we calculate it over here, $2,764 divided by $10,824. That equals our gross profit rate of 0.2. Now we have to round up again, so the 5 makes the other 5 round up to a 6, so it'd be 0.26, and that's what we got. So this is our gross profit rate, and that is the end of the problem. So this is how Wiley Plus, if you ever attempt, you get 3 attempts for each question, so if you ever attempt to do 3, if you use up all 3 attempts and you still don't have the right answer, you can click here and it says show answer, and that'll show you the correct answer. And this window pops up and it'll show the correct answer, which is the answers I have. And so that is how you access Wiley Plus and how to access the problem P5-1A. And I just showed you how to calculate each entry for the problem. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial of P5-1A, and I hope it helped. Thank you.